This episode of Virginia Sports Report is our NFL Draft preview show. We are going to take the top players from the state of Virginia that are headed to the NFL Draft. We're going to tell you where they are projected to go. We're going to tell you what's a good fit for them, how we think they can do in the NFL. It's going to be a great podcast as we embark on the 2018 NFL Draft. This is Virginia Sports Report, and we start right now.
From 46 yards, Racky to win it. On the way, Ethan Racky, and he got it! James Madison survives!
Snap good, spot good.
Oh, it's blocked! Liberty wins it! Liberty blocked it! Oh my goodness! The Flames have done it!
360 in the contract, never that. I just take the contact, I bring it back. I'm running on the.
This is Virginia Sports Report. We are now live and brought to you out of Roanoke, Virginia. Thank you for making us a part of your night. We deliver every single week the top news out of the Virginia Collegiate Athletics. We cover all of the Division I teams in the state. I am joined, although you cannot see him on Facebook Live, he is with us remotely. I am joined by my co-host, Chris Mason. Chris, how are you this evening?
I'm doing great, CJ. It's a beautiful day here in Roanoke, Virginia, and the sun's shining on the nice, finally spring day.
Yeah, today is like the first day in quite a while. It feels like spring. For those of you that are listening that are maybe been out of town for the week, maybe you're on vacation, you're lucky. Monday morning, we woke up to snow. That is no joke. It was snowing Monday morning here in the Roanoke Valley and throughout a good portion of the state. I'm excited to be here, though. There's no guest. Like I said, today is our NFL Draft preview show. So for those of you who don't know, there's a few things I really geek out about. Like I'm really into sports, as you know, you can obviously tell, but there's certain parts about sports I just really geek out about. And that one of those is the NFL Draft. And I mean, I get obsessed with this stuff. When NFL Draft weekend comes around, I tell my wife, like, whatever honey-do list you have, it's getting pushed back to the next weekend because this is serious. And this affects me on a day-to-day basis. I love the NFL Draft. So, Chris, we're going to start off. We're going to go right through the top prospects coming out of the state of Virginia, headed to the NFL Draft, and you're going to see one program on here quite a lot that is Virginia Tech, and their top player coming out of Virginia Tech is this linebacker, Tremaine Edmunds. He is projected not only to go into the first round, but he's projected to go into the top 10. Most draft boards, most mock drafts have him projected to go 8th to Chicago. So, I mean, people are talking top 10. But there's a lot of unpredictability once you get out of about the top 5 picks as far as where players are going to go. So, Tremaine Edmunds, depending on what happens above him, he could go in the top 10, or he could fall really far in this draft. There's a lot of things that could happen. Chris, Tremaine Edmunds, he came into the year. He was absolutely dominant on defense, had 5.5 sacks on the year, 104 tackles. Like, when we think great players that have come out of Virginia Tech, we think obviously D'Angelo Hall, Michael Vick, David Wilson. But Tremaine Edmunds is right there in that top group. What do you see when you look at this kid?
Oh yeah, he's amazing. I'll tell you. I think he has tremendous size for a linebacker at 6'5" and 250 pounds, but he also runs a 4.5 40, which is just lightning fast for his size. And he plays all over the field, so he is as good pass rusher as any linebacker, but he can also drop back into coverage. What I see in him as far as player style, and I hate to compare players, but I want to do it for him, is a Troy Polamalu but bigger. And that's what I see in this kid.
Well, I mean, you say size. He is 6'5", 250 pounds. And, you know, one of the things about these linebackers is you can't just play right there in the middle of the field. You've got to be able to drop back, play on the line. I mean, a linebacker is essentially just a bigger safety with the way the game is played nowadays. So you look at Tremaine Edmunds. I think he's a perfect fit for a lot of different defenses. A lot of people have him going to Chicago. Chris, it's cold. Chicago, though, is known for their amazing defenses throughout the history of the league. They're known for having guys like Brian Urlacher. They're known for having big physical guys like the Fridge. You look at Tremaine Edmunds, people are saying he's going to Chicago. How good of a fit do you think that is?
Not the best fit. I would actually. I mean, my projection for him is actually to go ninth.
Really?
I think Chicago passes on him, and he goes out to San Francisco. I think he can make an immediate impact on that team. They were starting to click last year on offense, but need to make some improvement on defense. I could see San Francisco moving up a spot or two to try to get this guy.
Well, listen, that's certainly not out of the realm of possibility there. And, when you're looking at elite defensive talent, one of the big questions is always from an NFL team, how good are you at the pass rush? And 5.5 sacks on a year where he played in 13 games, you're talking about almost a sack in every other game. 14 tackles for a loss, by the way. He is great at getting behind the line of scrimmage and tackling people for a loss. That is huge in the NFL. The interesting part about Tremaine Edmunds, and really anybody projected to go in the top 10, is all of the volatility with these picks. Because, there's so many quarterbacks expected to go at the top. We're talking about potentially 3 to 4 quarterbacks on the top 5 picks. And so if that happens, then you're going to have guys like Saquon Barkley, Minkah Fitzpatrick, some elite level talent get pushed further down draft boards. And so that's also going to have kind of a ripple effect on Tremaine Edmunds, a domino effect, where he's going to get pushed down too. So he could go as high as 7th or 8th. He could also go as low as late first round. So it's going to be very interesting to watch what happens with him. The next player we want to talk about, also out of Virginia Tech, also has the same last name. He's from the same family. Terrell Edmunds, another linebacker, and he's way more versatile than Tremaine Edmunds, but he's smaller. He's 6'2", 220. He played linebacker at Virginia Tech, and he played safety as well. He can play just about any position on defense that you need him to, and that's what attracts a lot of teams to him. Now, he's projected to go in the 2nd to 3rd round of the NFL draft. I think that's a perfect projection for him, and just like his brother Tremaine Edmunds, depending on what happens at the top at the quarterbacks, these defensive players could go super high. They could go way back in the draft from where they're projected at. And I've seen 2nd and 3rd round projection guys not get drafted and then make it onto a roster in free agency. So it is something certainly to watch for Terrell Edmunds. Chris, you look at Terrell, different than his brother. He's not going to get after the quarterback as much, but he is great going sideline to sideline as a safety or as a linebacker and playing that short pass game. Where does he fit on an NFL roster?
Yeah, that's the question. I think, he's a little too big for most teams to play safety and a little too small as even like an outside linebacker, but his athleticism makes up for all that. He's, I think, even more athletic than his younger brother, who we've been talking about. But
yeah.
So his upside, though, I think it might even be higher, just because he can play just about anywhere, and he can be all over the field as well.
Well, and he also played a lot of special teams at Tech, too, and this is one of the things Tech is known for, putting their best players on special teams. So Terrell Edmunds had a lot of experience doing that, and that's one of the reasons he's gone so far up people's draft boards into that 2nd or 3rd round. I love the kid. And, by the way, I don't know if you're at a zoo, Chris, but we've had some complaints on Facebook about a bird in the background, so I don't know if that's... What's that?
I do hear the bird. I
do hear the bird.
I'm sitting outside to the kids.
Oh, gotcha. Understood. Not a problem. But, Terrell Edmunds, I look at him as a perfect fit for a team like Washington, who just lost Sua Cravens. And Terrell Edmunds, size-wise, is very similar to Sua Cravens. He's very versatile, just like Sua can. He can play on the line. He can play back against pass defense. To me, late second round, I think is where we're going to see Terrell Edmunds go. And so Redskins have a pick. I believe it's like late teens, early 20s in the second round. And I think there's a good chance they would use it on him. Chris, you brought up Troy Polamalu, who played safety at Pittsburgh. I could see Terrell Edmunds being a fit on a Pittsburgh defense that's also looking for a safety or a backup safety. I think Terrell Edmunds could go into a nice fit there like Pittsburgh. What do you see as far as you think about fit? You think which defense would be good for him? Where do you see him going?
Yeah, any of the aging defenses, I think about Baltimore. I think they're from Maryland, if I believe right.
Yeah, they are. Their dad was a star at Maryland with the Terrapins.
Sure. So I could see him. I could see him going to Baltimore. I think he fits well into that defense, and that's kind of an aging defense where he could. Maybe not come in and play a lot of downs, the first couple of years, but really fit in and get some experience under those guys before making a major impact.
Yeah, let's move on to our next player, also declared early and also, I said like most of them, out of Virginia Tech, Tim Settle. Now, he is projected to go into the second or third round of the draft, and this is one I actually think he's going to fall pretty far to the fourth or fifth round, and the reason I say that is because he played nose tackle, not just defensive tackle. And so the only place he's going to find a roster spot on is a team that plays a 3-4 defense. And that right now, the 3-4 defense is rapidly becoming extinct. So Tim Settle is a great player at Virginia Tech. I don't know that I would have recommended he declare early. He needs to find a place on a roster where he's not going to be subject to the nose tackle guy, because these 3-4 defenses, there's just not many teams playing them anymore. A lot of teams have switched to a nickel or dime based defense, and I don't know where a nose tackle like Tim Settle is going to fit on that. Now, you look at size wise, Chris, 6'3", 335 pounds. They can move him around if they need to, and he did have 4 sacks last year and 12.5 tackles behind the line of scrimmage. So those numbers look really solid when you're thinking pass rusher. But, Tim Settle, he's projected second or third round. I think a lot of people are overvaluing him. I've got him going later in the draft. Where do you see him?
This guy made a lot of improvements in his physique over this year. The kind of up-paced Bud Foster defense, and I think the conditioning at Virginia Tech, which is, if not the best, one of the best conditioning programs in the nation, really improved him. So I can see him going fairly early. I would say probably mid-second round to early third round.
Sure.
Is kind of my projection for him, but he's very athletic for his size and has a lot of agility. So not the fastest kid on the field, but can move side to side and get around some of these offensive tackles.
My projection of where I think he needs to end up, I'm going to say one of those NFC North teams. Watching Minnesota last year, I thought the pass rush was good, not great. And if they can add in a really nice pass rusher, that would make it elite. Same thing with the Lions. The Lions need a lot of help on that defensive side of the ball. I think Tim Settle's a good fit there for a team that does run a 3-4 defense every now and then. He can come in at nose tackle and really put the pressure on, Kirk Cousins, put the pressure on Aaron Rodgers, and Mitch Trubisky over there at Chicago. So I look at Tim Settle. I like him going to the Lions or the Vikings. Where do you see him being a good fit at?
No, I actually had Lions and Bucks wrote down. I could see him making a major impact on the Bucks right away. Just being able to help them out on the defensive end.
Okay, so you and I are in agreement there with the Lions are going to be in that contention to draft Tim Settle there out of Virginia Tech. Now we're going to get out of Virginia Tech. Move on to our next player, who's actually out of University of Richmond. And this is one of the more interesting prospects available. Kyle, and I always mess up his last name, but Kyle Lauletta, out of University of Richmond. He is projected to go in the 3rd to the 5th round. And I wrote an article about this. I think he's one of the more fascinating players in the NFL draft because if you look at and you watch his games, statistically, he is exactly what scouts are looking for. He is 6'3", 215. That is prototypical what you want to see in an NFL player. He threw for a bunch of yards, and his completion percentage was 63%. That's exactly what you want in the NFL. And the great thing about it is if you go game by game, that completion percentage really didn't waver. He played JMU, still completed 60% of his passes. Played Maine, did the same thing. Those are good FCS teams he's facing, and he's still completing the same amount of passes. The other good thing, too, is he's able to run the ball and get out of the pocket. No, he's not going to go to that primarily, but he does have some escapability to avoid being sacked. That I like a lot in a league where offensive line play has kind of been deteriorating over the past several years. Now, Chris, the interesting thing about this is, there's a lot of possibility we're going to have 4 quarterbacks taken in the top 4 picks, and even potential for a 5th quarterback to be taken in the top 15. So if that happens, then a player like Kyle Luletta could move way up the draft board, because somebody who didn't get one of those top 5 quarterbacks could then settle for a guy like Luletta. The interesting thing about that, though, is once you get out of Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, and Baker Mayfield, it really becomes more about, does the team like you or not? Those top 4 guys, it doesn't matter if they like you. They're going to take you if they get a chance. But with a player like Kyle, it matters, is it a good fit? Do they have do their coordinators like you? Do their scouts like you? Do they think you're going to fit in with the roster? And so I look at a player like Kyle. He's super smart, kind of athletic, likes to stay in the pocket. I think he's a good fit for a team like New England, where he could sit for a year or two to learn the game, or a team like Washington, where he can play behind Alex Smith for a couple of years and learn the game as well. What do you see with this kid?
Yeah, there's one downside, major downside that I can see. He doesn't have a long ball, at least not with any accuracy. So that means he's a systems quarterback to me. He has to fit into the right system, which I would say even a place like New Orleans or the Giants, those are the 2 that I wrote down, would be perfect conditions for him. Both aging quarterbacks. Now, Brees can throw the ball 80 yards down the field and hit a garbage can if he wanted to, but so he does have that long ball, but still he uses kind of the short dump passes, some stuff over the middle that which is what they use primarily. So I could see him being a great fit in New Orleans, but also the Giants as well too, behind Eli.
Oh, no, that's a great idea. Going to sit behind Eli for a year or two, and then Eli retires and you're able to step in, or maybe Eli gets injured and you step in. And same thing with the Saints. I mean, Drew Brees, you talk about system quarterbacks. I mean, that's a great one to sit behind and learn. And you get Sean Payton, a really good offensive mind that can help teach you the game, teach you the pace of the game. I think that would be a fantastic fit for Kyle Luletta. I think so much of quarterbacks these days, though, isn't about, which round you go in the draft. I mean, we've seen guys like, Dak Prescott go in the 4th round and Tom Brady go in the 6th round. And I mean, we've seen guys go late in the draft and they end up working out. Chris, I think a lot about this is, does he go to the right fit? So I like the kid. But let's say he gets drafted by a Cincinnati or a Cleveland or a Buffalo. I don't think any of those are good fits, because they're cold weather cities with defensive personnel, and he's going to be expected to play soon if they don't succeed, and the chances of them winning early aren't great. So he's going to have to play year 1, year 2. How much of his potential success is going to be on which team takes him?
Yeah, 100%. There's talented quarterbacks coming up in the league every year, and if you don't make a name for yourself when your name is called, then you have no chance. We've seen it with the Browns year in and year out. I cannot tell you how many talented, very capable quarterbacks that should have made it in the league have failed just because they were drafted by the Browns. And I also think about the kid, his name is escaping me right now, but played for Oakland and was like 6'6", and everybody had high expectations. And he went to Oakland, and they were
Tavares Jackson.
Yes, and that kid should still be in the league now. Maybe he is, but he's not playing, and he's a great, talented or he was a great talented player. So it's 100%, especially at the quarterback position.
Oh, completely agree. Let's move on to our next player. This player is out of UVA, played for the Cavs, Andrew Brown. Now, he is a very versatile player, played on the defensive line. He can play defensive tackle. He can play defensive end. Some people are saying he could even shed 20 pounds and play linebacker in this league because he's got a lot of quickness to him. He is 6'4", 285. That is not weight size. That's not big for a defensive lineman, but it's kind of too big to be a linebacker. So either he's going to have to gain weight or lose weight, and that's why a lot of people right now aren't super high on him. That I think is slightly concerning. But you look at Andrew Brown, projected 4th to the 6th round. He did have 4 sacks last season, 6 sacks in his junior year. And again, he can play all over the defensive line. Chris, I think this is one of those players where when you're on the clock and you're in like the 5th round, and this happens to be the best available prospect, you just take him because he's just such a versatile athlete.
Yeah, and I mean, he gives it his all. This kid, he was supposed to be the top player, defensive player coming out of high school. And not to say he was a complete bust, but just didn't live up to what people thought he was going to be during his college career. But yeah, I think, he gives it his all and he plays hard. But I'm with you too. He's a little undersized on the line. I don't think he's quite quick enough to play linebacker, but we'll see about that. I think he's really all in for a nice defensive tackle position, though.
Yeah, and again, this is one of the few guys. We could sit here and name teams where does he fit at. I honestly don't think it necessarily matters for him because he's just such a versatile player. And he can play defensive tackle if you've got a 3-4. He can play a nickel if he can play defensive end if you've got a nickel defense. He can do so many different things. Projected 4th to the 6th round. I think this is one of those players that could move up somebody's draft board because they're just looking at tape going, okay, this guy's a freak athlete. All right, let's move on to our next player. This is a guard. This is Wyatt Teller out of Virginia Tech, and this is a player that coming into 2017, before the start of the season, people thought he might go in the 1st round. He fell back because his production in 2017 significantly dropped off, and there were discussions of maybe he and head coach Justin Fuente were butting heads. People were saying he's got a lackadaisical work ethic. I mean, it was just not a good situation. The interesting thing about Wyatt Teller, Chris, is he has the talent, the true talent of anybody in the first round. I mean, that guard out of Notre Dame, everybody's just salivating over. Wyatt Teller is just as talented as he is. But the question is the work ethic and is the right attitude there? So Wyatt Teller was projected to go in the 1st, 2nd round before the 2017 started. He's now projected to go in between the 4th and the 5th round. Chris, what could we look forward to with this kid?
Yeah, this is the biggest crapshoot to me. So a lot of what these teams are looking for now is not necessarily what they're doing at the combine, but what they're doing during the interviews. Yeah, and if they fit into the team's culture. And so if they say, okay, this kid just doesn't have it because he doesn't have the work ethic, then I could see him not getting drafted. But if during his interviews, he says, look, we just had some issues off the field between me and the offensive coordinator or the coach, and, I just wasn't really feeling it last year, maybe had some personal issues that are behind him, then, yeah, 4th round, and I think he has all the upside in the world.
Yeah, well, I mean, his junior year, 2016, he was an honorable mention for All ACC. So, I mean, the talent for this kid is certainly there. And even though he was butting heads with Justin Fuente, it's not like they took him out of the starting lineup. They kept starting him because you just don't bench a player that talented. And I think this is going to be another one. We get into like late 2nd round, early 3rd round, team's going to be sitting there going, there's not a lot of value for us to trade. We do need, you always need help on the offensive line, and they sit there and they watch, a couple plays from this kid's senior year tape or junior year tape, and they're like, that kid really looks the part of an NFL player, and they take him. So people are projecting him 4th to 5th round because of what is being said. But I think when teams are on the clock and the pressure is on, they really start looking at talent, and they start looking at what they know is true to be in the NFL. And one of the things I heard from a football coach say once is, he said, in football, the biggest team wins like 90% of the time. So at the end of the day, go big. And that's kind of what I see with Wyatt Teller. I see somebody that would take a chance on him just because the size, the strength, the talent is there. Chris, what's a good fit for him? I look at a team like Tampa Bay that needs help on the offensive line, a team like Detroit that needs help on the offensive line, or a team like Seattle especially, where they have got to find a way to protect Russell Wilson. What is a good fit for Wyatt? What would be a good fit as far as like head coach, personality, where he needs to kind of have his hand held for that first couple of years?
Yeah, I don't think either. I'm not, filling many of the teams that you just said just because I think a lot of them have probably some internal issues personnel-wise. So I don't know. Some place where there's a lot of discipline. Gosh, you put me on the spot here. But a lot of discipline, maybe somebody that can hold his hand and help him into the league if he does have some off the field issues. Give me a team. Can't think.
I mean, New England would be a good one.
Obviously, yeah, New England's great.
My thing with Seattle, they've definitely had some internal issues, but Pete Carroll is kind of a hands-off, motivational type leader, and he just has a different way of doing things. He is like complete opposite of Bill Belichick. Justin Fuente is very similar to the Belichickian way, where it's very structured. You come to practice, you work your tail off, you study film, and I almost wonder if maybe a few years away from that, a system away from that style where it's very, very rigid, would be good for a player like Wyatt, where he can go to a coach that's a little bit looser, isn't going to micromanage you, and will let you kind of work up to your potential.
Yeah, perhaps. I would go the opposite way. I'd get that kid in where he has to, show up every day and be accountable.
Let's move on to our last player of tonight, Micah Kiser. This is a linebacker out of UVA. He is 6'2", 240 pounds. You watch tape on this kid. He looks just like every other NFL linebacker. I mean, he's got the size, he's got the speed. Again, decent behind the line of scrimmage. Had 5 sacks on the year, 9.5 tackles for a loss. His biggest objection coming from scouts is that he's not as great against the run as he is the pass. My takeaway with that, Chris, is this league is not about running the football. I mean, not that running backs, and having good running game doesn't help you out, but at the end of the day, if you don't have a good quarterback or a good pass defense, you're in a lot of trouble. And so I look at a kid like Micah Kiser, and what I see is a player capable of playing against the pass, capable of rushing a passer, capable of playing pass defense against some of these bigger tight ends, and he's got the speed and agility you want in an NFL defense. I think he would be a good fit just because of his physical attributes alone.
Yeah, great physical guy. He's kind of a bruiser of a guy. He'll get in there and get hands on and get dirty as much as possible. So I really like his chances. He has also probably, really great instincts on the field, which I think will take him a long way.
Well, his junior year, by the way, he had 5 forced fumbles and recovered 2 of them. I mean, that's a very high number. He had 12 pass deflections throughout his year at Virginia Tech. So again, he gets in the middle of passes, had an interception there at UVA. He's a very good, capable linebacker, projected 4th to 6th round. Chris, I think of teams that are in need of a linebacker, honestly, I look at your Cowboys, to have a guy come in behind Sean Lee when he's injured and is capable of playing against the pass. I think it's something like Dallas would need to have a really good backup linebacker, or even a team like Tennessee where we saw, moments of brilliance from that team. But then on the defensive side of the ball, real questions, especially against the pass, where they were eaten alive at points this year. I think Tennessee or Dallas would be a great fit for Micah Kiser.
Yeah, I think I would love to see him go to Dallas. I love his ability and just the fact that he'll just get in there and head up against anybody. So I think he kind of has the playing style of Sean Lee without quite all the talent, but not many people do.
No, Sean Lee's a world-class athlete.
Yeah.
So, all right, Chris, any closing thoughts as we end our NFL Draft special podcast?
No, it's going to be an interesting draft. I hope the best for all the guys that we mentioned.
Yeah, no, completely agree. These players like Tremaine Edmonds, Terrell Edmonds, Kyle Lulala, those are going to be the players in my mind to watch the first couple of days. And I think the first day is going to be incredibly entertaining, especially if you're a fan of Virginia sports. But I think, days 2 and 3 of this draft are going to be where you will see the most movement and the most unpredictability. And that's where these players that we discussed tonight are really going to come in. And that's going to be the most exciting part of this thing. Chris, thanks for joining. Thanks to everybody for watching tonight. This is Virginia Sports Report. Don't forget, you can go to our website, www.virginiasportsreport.com. You can write your own article. Submit it to us. I will publish it on the website. You can also read what we have written on there. Follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/BA Sports Report. We'd love to see you guys follow us and tweet us over there. We will be back next week. This is Virginia Sports Report. Have a good night.